You set an alarm last night. You checked it twice. You woke up before it went off anyway, because your internal clock likes to punish you. And by the time your feet hit the floor, your brain was already running a frantic mental checklist. Work, unread messages, deadlines, the thing you forgot to do yesterday, the thing you have to do today. You have been awake for exactly 11 seconds, and you are already behind. That feeling, that low, relentless pressure of a life measured entirely in tasks, is one of the defining sensations of modern human existence. We wear our busyness like a badge of honor. But here is the question almost nobody asks. Was it always like this? Did the people who came before us, the ones who built no corporate offices, owned no smartphones, and punched absolutely no clocks, did they feel this same crushing weight? What did ancient humans actually do all day? The answer is stranger than you have been told, and it will completely ruin the way you look at a standard 9 to 5. Start with the assumption most of us carry without even realizing it. We have this collective idea that early humans were constantly, desperately busy, just trying not to die. We imagine every waking moment was consumed by exhausting effort, hunting, running from apex predators, fleeing natural disasters, and building shelter. It's a compelling, dramatic image. It is also completely wrong. In 1966, an anthropologist named Marshall Solins delivered a paper at a symposium in Chicago that would completely flip social science on its head. He called hunter-gatherers the original Affluent Society. His central claim was radical. Hunter-gatherers did not work very hard. In fact, they worked very little. And by the standards of almost every civilization that came after them, they had more leisure time than you do on a long holiday weekend. The data behind that claim has been debated, refined, and picked apart by academics for decades, but the core truth has survived. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, communities in the Kalahari, the Amazon, and the forests of Central Africa have documented actual working days that average somewhere between 3 and 5 hours. Not 8, not 10, 3 to 5. After that, the day opens up completely. There is time for rest, for deep conversation, for play, and for taking a massive nap in the middle of the afternoon if the mood takes you, without a boss breathing down your neck. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent years living with and documenting the Jew/Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert. What he found shattered all of his modern assumptions. The Jew-Huansi spent roughly 2.5 days per week acquiring food. The rest of the time, they talked, they danced, they told stories, they slept. They did, in the language of modern productivity culture, essentially nothing. And they weren't suffering for it. Their diet was diverse and nutritionally rich. Their social lives were deep, and their knowledge of the natural world around them was encyclopedic. They were thriving by doing less. So, what did a normal day actually look like? It would have started most likely with fire. Not the starting of fire, because that was actual work, but the lazy tending of it. The slow, warm process of waking up beside something that had been kept alive through the night. Your ancient ancestor did not bolt awake to a screaming smartphone alarm. They opened their eyes to warmth, to the smell of wood smoke, and to the sound of other people already moving nearby. Even sleep itself was a completely different experience. Research at UCLA studying hunter-gatherer groups found that these populations didn't sleep in one long, unbroken, forced 8-hour block. They slept in shorter phases, sometimes waking up in the middle of the night to look at the stars or chat and resting again before dawn. Insomnia, in the modern clinical sense, was basically non-existent. The pressure to compress all of your rest into a single rigid window simply didn't exist. Morning might bring a decision, not a corporate meeting that could have been an email, but an actual decision. Do we move today or stay? Is the water source nearby? Did anyone notice which direction the animals went yesterday? This kind of group thinking was low pressure, unhurried, and collaborative. No agendas, no facilitators, no corporate buzzwords. Just people sitting near a fire, reading the world, and deciding together. Then at some point, the work would begin, and the work was absorbing in a way that staring at an Excel spreadsheet rarely is. A group of hunters tracking an animal across broken terrain weren't thinking about their student loans. They were reading footprints, testing the air, and moving with a kind of total sensory attention that researchers now recognize as a flow state. The psychological condition of complete immersion in a challenging, meaningful task. We didn't name that state until the 20th century, but the people who lived it were experiencing it tens of thousands of years before the word existed. Gathering was its own form of sustained attention, knowing which plants were safe and which would kill you by lunchtime. Knowing which roots were worth digging up and which ones were a waste of time. This wasn't mechanical mind-numbing labor. It was applied expertise, built over years, passed down through generations, in stories, demonstrations, and the patient observation of elders. When the food was finally carried back, the social world came alive, and the sheer richness of it would probably shock you. The human brain actually evolved primarily to manage social complexity, not to solve abstract math problems or build tools. The social world of a hunter-gatherer band, roughly 150 people, was an intricate web of relationships, alliances, jokes, and histories. Navigating it required intelligence of the highest order. It required storytelling. The stories ancient humans told each other weren't just entertainment. They were technology. They were the system by which knowledge was stored, ethics were transmitted, and the rules of the group were enforced. Researcher Polly Wiesner documented a striking pattern among the Zhu Honsi. Daytime conversations were dominated by practical matters like food and resources. But nighttime conversations, lit by the fire, were dominated almost entirely by stories, fictional narratives, accounts of distant events, jokes, and songs. The ancient campfire was the original broadcast network, and the programming ran every night without commercials. Children in this world didn't sit at desks in classrooms. They played, constantly, freely, in mixed-age groups that developmental psychologists now recognize as the absolute ideal environment for building social intelligence, physical competence, and creative thinking. They watched adults work and joined in only when they wanted to. There was no formal instruction, no curriculum, and no stressful assessments. Learning happened through immersion, imitation, and fun. It was inefficient by modern standards, but remarkably effective by every other measure. And in the middle of the day, quite often, there was absolutely nothing. Real, pure nothing, lying in the shade, watching clouds drift by, listening to the birds. The kind of open, unfocused rest that neuroscientists study under the term default mode network activity. This is the state in which your brain isn't working on a specific problem, but is instead consolidating memory, generating insight, and making unexpected connections between distant ideas. The ancient human resting in the shade wasn't being lazy. Their brain was doing vital creative formatting work that focused attention simply cannot do. Now let's be realistic. There was also pain, sickness, the devastating death of loved ones, sometimes very young. There was the constant uncertainty of whether the next season would bring enough food and physical dangers that are genuinely hard to translate into modern terms. It would be entirely wrong to romanticize a life that included all of that survival risk. But evolutionary biologists make a careful distinction between the types of stress we face. The acute stress that ancient humans experienced was real, intense, but incredibly short. A lion jumping out of a bush is terrifying, but it is over quickly, one way or another. Your quarterly performance review is never over. The notifications never stop. The email inbox instantly refills itself the moment you clear it. Ancient stress was a sudden wave. Modern stress is a relentless, lifelong tide. What does all of this leave you with? The picture that emerges from decades of field research and cognitive science is not a portrait of a primitive, miserable struggle. It is a portrait of a life organized around a fundamentally different relationship with time. If this breakdown changed the way you look at your daily grind, hit that like button and subscribe. We drop new videos every single week. See you inside the next video.